Thank you. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Today we'll be talking about the transport layer privacy in proof-of-stake Ethereum. So we'll be actually talking quite a lot about PBS, solo staker, MEV, and privacy. And most importantly, why those terms come together and they are important to each other. So my name is Q, decentralized technology architect from Hopper. For those who do not know Hopper, one-liner explanation, we build privacy-preserving infrastructure to protect your metadata. A couple of weeks ago, I asked ChatGPT, just for a friend, you know, they have there's an unused mini PC. What should they do to generate some passive income? Could you please just give some recommendation? And here is what ChatGPT tells me. First one, running a crypto node or validator. And secondly, host a private VPN, etc. By the way, I'm really happy that they mentioned VPN because, yeah, Hopper, we are actually building Gnosis VPN. I would be even happier if they actually mentioned that. But anyway, this is not the point. So the main point is, how would a person like to use their unused node for the max profits to become a validator, and then how to make those profits. So this friend, imaginary friend, plugs in the mini PC, installed a DevNode OS, and picked their favorite client implementation to run the first validator. And voila, this node has been working hard, picking some validate transactions, you know, and then execute those transactions, sign the block, broadcast it. So after quite some while, they can proudly call themselves a solo staker. And welcome to the club. However, after running for a certain period of time, this friend quickly realizes a very fierce competition in the environment of Ethereum because only roughly 2.6 blocks per year does it have to manage to propose, which translates to roughly 2.9% of APR. So soon they benchmark themselves against other validators to figure out something that might potentially help them with the performance, having a higher return, which is called MEV boost. So those MEV boost will have a higher APR because here we can see that the median block reward could increase from roughly 0.007 ETH to somewhere like 0.03 ETH, which is a whacking 400% of increase, and translates the APR from 2.93 to 3.24%. And this is a huge improvement. So obviously, there's no reason of just refusing from adopting the MEV boost. So here we include the MEV boost into the implementation, into the client, and hopefully to get a higher APR. But where actually does this higher API come from? So for this, we actually need to turn into the term of MEV. And here is the explanation from the Ethereum Foundation, saying that the MEV refers to the maximum value that can be extracted from block production in excess of the standard block reward and gas fees by including, excluding, and changing the order of transaction within the block. So that's where the extra profit comes from. So the extra profit to grab comes from the block production. But in order to grab them, it normally requires a beefier machine because you need a smarter algorithm to kind of figure out what is the best order and then put them into a proper block, properly broadcast it within 12-second slot. So for us, running a consumer-grade machine, it basically means that we will lose every battle in this war. So is there any solution for solo stakers to get better rewards? The answer is yes. So introducing the proposer-builder separation. So the PBS actually separates the role of the validator into two distinguishable roles. One is called block builder, and then the other one is block proposer. So for block builder, it constructs the most profitable block and select the transactions, ordering them, and block proposer merely focus on proposing the block to taking the block, which is prepared with the high speed, and then propose them. So under this model, kind of like a specialized block builder role emerges, and then they search for the best MEV opportunities, and also they kind of like either build by themselves or receive it from a trusted searchers. And what it's on top of that is that this PBS essentially is supposed to restrict the MEV profit to kind of redistribute it to validators, because there is always a competition between the builders to offer the highest bid to the proposers, which will, this competition will basically press the margin that a builder can earn, and then return them more profit back to the proposer. And so now it's time to actually have a very brief recap on the PPS, kind of like the evolution of them. So it started from somewhere 2018, and then with more discussion around 21, where the 2-slot PBS got introduced. Here, there's an extra kind of a consensus slot between the proposal and the block finalization for validator to verify the proposed block before actually confirming them. But the issue is that it increases the complexity of the chain and also the latency, so it makes it really less desirable. But then in 22 comes the single slot PBS. So everything is condensed within the slot of 12 seconds, where the proposer needs to first do a commit to commit to an externally built block without any delay. And further, comes the kind of like the more commonly agreed approach called PEPSI, where a more flexible, also enforceable protocol level commitment will be placed, because like proposers can pre-commit to certain bids with different types of conditions, and it will be kind of retrospectively verified according to if the execution is correct or not. And then later on, there are also a few improvements on, for example, the payload timeless committee, in order to make sure that the block proposer actually propose on time, arrival on time, and then punishing the delays. And the BNL, the block negotiation layer, is kind of to refining the relayer part of the entire PBS, if there is such role in the PBS. But then the question is, we do not have a defined scope, defined specification of PBS, so everything is still in discussion. The field is wild. But there's one thing that's for sure, it's set in stone, is that ETH2 clients introduce a builder API roughly kind of like between January and October of 22. And this standardized builder API kind of have ensure that the PBS has a very good starting point, and to make sure that, okay, with the PBS really in mind, we kind of assures the solo stakers to have fewer issues. But is that the case? So coming back to our friend of a solo staker, a couple of months later, it receives a screenshot from another fella desperate for help. Can you spot the issue? So this basically talks about the Randall values, if you cannot really see what is here. And everything's quite small, I know. The problem is, a couple of blocks, right? Here you can see the slots. At each slot, normally there is one block proposed at each slot. And then around those slots, those Randall values are identical. What does it mean? It means that some block proposers in such a sequence, they failed to provide their entropy to the Randall. And what does those Randall values needed? So those Randall values are used to select the next block proposer. It means that those block proposer signatures is just simply not there, and somehow their slot gets skipped. Why? And what actually made that happen? It's, we can just, as a detective, kind of like look into all the possible components. And one of the biggest component that it's more susceptible and like suspicious is this MEV boost that we just introduced as part of like the latest implementation of PBS. So we need to have a closer inspection of the MEV boost sidecar. So basically, if we look at the architecture of MEV boost, we can see that actually block builders, they take some create blocks from mempool transactions, bundle everything by searchers, private orders, feed to the relayer in the middle, and then the validators from the left side can actually take those blocks with transactions and then propose it. MEV boost obtains basically those blocks just directly from the relay. And then relay is here at the center point of the architecture, and relay is actually widely known to be a trusted component. And the relay node, so coming back to the PBS and also the standardized builder API of PBS, so relay actually implements the standard builder API. And here we map out the sequence program, the sequence diagram actually, for the relay and list all the API calls that they use. So some of the, there are really a lot of APIs being called, but then most of them, they're facing validators, some of are facing the block builders, and the other with the beacon node. So we need to zoom even in further to the part that we're interested in. We're particularly actually interested in this proposer API, and specifically called register validator. So it's kind of like proposer in the field, like in the view of the relayer, but also as part of the builder API. So they are called because they need to register a public key to be verified when releasing the block. With that, we kind of like, okay, we have some data can be collected from calling this builder API, and what else? We need some extra help from the off-chain data. Actually, Yang, who was the speaker before, managed to tell like the message exchange in the Ethereum peer-to-peer network actually allows a silent observer to de-anonymize validator in the network. So we're going to take it from there, identify the victims by combining what we can get from the Ethereum peer-to-peer network with what we can get from the builder API from the PBS implementation, like PBS design, put them together, essentially taking a sniper to figure out who are the validators. And then running the MEV boost is just like, such type of utility in the PBS era can make a solid, like solo staker very vulnerable to be identified. But so what? Once you got identified, what may happen? What could happen is that there are more MEV at lost. So basically running MEV boost in the PBS will expose them to a different type of MEV. This is the MEV that's beyond the definition that Ethereum Foundation gave us, because we're actually looking beyond one single block. It is not only about mempool reordering, it's when we take the off-chain data, combining with the peer-to-peer networking relayer, with the metadata, with other components like relay, in order to figure out something called skip slot MEV. So the definition of this type of MEV is that once parties have been de-anonymized within the peer-to-peer network, adversaries, they can target them to directly extract MEV from transactions, sniping slot rewards, and most importantly, interfere with future block proposals. So it just doesn't really not only affects the reward of the current slot, but also by manipulating randomness calculation, manage to define who will be the block proposer in the future. And those block proposers, basically, they have the right of including, excluding, designing whatever they want to have of that particular time. And therefore, there are more MEV games to be played over there. And some people may say, okay, for this type of MEV to be extracted, you need some help from this builder API, right? And then in the previous example, we only look at the current implementation of MEV boost. This is just one of the possible implementation of PBS. What if we say okay, we kind of want to, we could decentralize the role of the relayer, or just use a completely different decentralized way of running the PBS. Will this decentralization help with this skip slot MEV? Unfortunately, not. Perhaps even worse, actually. It will worsen the extraction of such type of MEV. Because if you're kind of realize you're being attacked, it's very hard to prove who attacks it. It could be someone from the relay, a different relay that you connect to, or some direct builder that you kind of know. So as long as you are in a distributed network, it is very hard to pinpoint who are the attackers, because you give out your data, metadata privacy to everyone. It is when you are in a distributed network, you can be observed by anyone that connects to you. So a malicious relay, even though it's decentralized, it's distributed, it could still easily conduct such type of skip slot MEV and leave no traces. So suspicions will fall everywhere. And so basically, as a recap, when we have this privacy leakage in the proposer-builder separation, what are the consequences? Economically, basically means that solo stakers, they are more vulnerable to DDoS attack because there's a incentivization for other people, most likely with more validators running under their in their hand, to conduct this attack in order to manipulate the RANDAL. And then there is something called K-tail, or RANDAL takeover. Basically, it means that by taking over the last K slots of an epoch, the RANDAL value can be manipulated in favor of the attacker, such that it grows, like it controls, it makes the validator controlled by the attacker to be selected by the proposer in the future epoch, and then grow one slot further. So eventually, it will make the entire slot being controlled by the attacker. And solo stakers are simply more likely to be the victim of such attack because there is a lack of the network security measures, and also it's very hard for them to determine if they have been attacked or not. This type of negative consequence for network decentralization will actually bring the resilience of the Ethereum network down. And another attack scenario is to use this skip slot MEV to manipulate this TWAP on some DeFi protocols by gaining some edge on the arbitrage between decentralized exchange or centralized exchange. And it will actually make the background multiple, certain MEV searchers even more vulnerable because, their MEV can be sniped. And just on the peer-to-peer network level side, there's a very interesting type of attack. It's called convert flash attack. So it is a form of attack where symbols of an attacker can kind of like camouflage themselves for an extended period of time and only attack when the victim becomes the proposer, and then essentially just turn into executing a coordinated eclipse attack when the victim needs to propose a block. And such type of attack, it gives basically the home stakers even more, kind of like make them as even more as a target. But all parties on the value chain can be a victim, because metadata were not only attacked or collected on the validator side, but also builder, searcher, everywhere who is connected to, like, on the map of the PBS, their metadata can be leaked, and then every party can be a victim. So from that experiment of manipulating RANDAL, we basically learned that everybody is vulnerable, everybody is a suspect, and anyone can be attacked or benefit from an attacker. Privacy leakage can result in loss in profit and loss of MEV due to skip slot, because it's feasible and cheap to conduct such type of a DDoS attack. And decentralizing MEV infrastructure actually doesn't really lead to a better trust assumption. It just makes it even worse. And because we are still at the point of finalizing design of PBS, I think what we want is to have the privacy protection at least on the HTTP API calls, and arguably have less latency-sensitive peer-to-peer layer to make sure that the fairness and the resilience of the entire network. So thank you very much. If you're interested in our actual experiments, there is an experiment walkthrough during DEF CON, and also we have published everything to the report. Just check it out.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, applause. Thank you.